Hey there, so I'm Steve. My company is Elysian Forge. We're a brand of LARP weapon manufacturer specialising in curved cores. I started reenacting, actually a Dark Ages reenactment, about 10 years ago or so. It was about 2009, 2010 or so. And I was involved in that for kind of a while. I did some blacksmithing, I did a bit of fighting, I went to some festivals, and then I sort of dropped off while I was doing my degree. It took me a little while to get back into it, but I sort of sought out some other kind of like medieval or fantasy setting, and I actually found, I knew that my business partner Anthony was into it, kind of sought him out, and eventually kind of met up and got pulled into it that way. As soon as I started in LARP, I kind of looked at the swords and went, I think I'd like to try to make some of those. It took me a little while to realize that there was a little bit of a niche there, that there was a thing that hadn't been done, and that was the curve cores. But once I realized that, I started looking into ways to make it happen. So I did things like PVC and Delrin. Those are materials that you can heat and then bend, and I tried those for a while unsuccessfully, and eventually got to the point where I was realizing that fiberglass really is the kind of de facto standard, and it almost wouldn't be accepted any other way. You know, there really had to be fiberglass or bust. So once that happened, I started experimenting to see ways that I could make it happen. Once one worked, I went, well, I mean, I guess if nobody else is doing it, I'm the only one, I guess that maybe I'll try to go a little bit further with this. But we're going for our favorites, but also what we believe are the kind of top picks, the top categories of curved swords that are sort of underrepresented because the technology isn't really available yet until now. So I guess the first one is the katana. So these are a very gentle curve. They're almost straight, although throughout history they've been made into sort of different curvatures. This is one that we just happen to think is really, really beautiful. So it's almost it's more of a curve down here near the base, and then kind of gently almost straightens up at the end. So I think that's a really lovely curve. So that's our least dramatic curve, but very elegant, I think. And then we have slightly more curvy. This is a cavalry saber. We didn't bring the knuckle bow to put on here, that hasn't been attached yet, but so this is a reproduction of a 1796 light cavalry saber, so it has a little bit more of a dramatic curve, this flare in the end here. So that's another whole category, I guess. The sabers are really anything from really very dramatic curves to fairly straight blades, even completely straight blades in some cases. I guess that sort of third category is the more Indo-Persian sort of style. So we're calling these scimitars. The scimitar is a little bit of a sort of nebulous, non-specific term that was kind of adopted in the West. It doesn't really refer to any specific sword, but we're using it to refer to a family of swords from, you know, kind of Indo-Persia. So this particular example we call a shamshir. There's a long slender blade and a very dramatic curve. And again, very much like the sabers, the curves on scimitars can be anything from, you know, practically straight or even completely straight to very dramatic. This is probably one of the most dramatic curves that you're likely to find in any sword, which is partly why we wanted to do it, really to show off what we can do. I guess the last kind of category is these weird these weird swords that don't really fit into any others. So this is an ancient Bronze Age weapon called a khopesh that's very popular. It's from Egypt. It's kind of a sickle sword. And we really love it. It's just a crazy shape that you don't really see in any other sword, which is cool. That gave us the chance to experiment with different finishes here as well. So this one in particular, bronze, but we've added a little bit of green in there to kind of represent the tarnishing of the bronze too, so it looks really great.
Alright, so the two axe types we're launching our Kickstarter with is a Dark Age style Viking hand axe, but the exciting one for me is a really heavily bearded axe. So this is a prototype of the core, so this core would actually conform to the beard of the axe. Axe blade up there, top spike, back hammer, a very versatile late middle age type design, accentuated to use the size you can do in LARP that you can't do with steel. So whilst these are mostly historical shapes, we are looking forward to doing a lot more in the LARP space as well, things you couldn't do in history because you had to use steel. But as you can see, this is actually intensely strong, but also allows for a fair bit of spring. So when you're striking on this surface, it's going to actually be a fair bit safer because it will actually compress and you're hitting with the tip of the core, which is excellent. But also, obviously beard axes are for hooking, and this will be able to hook shields and weapons out of the way and be very strong. And as we all know, if you've used the LARP axe, typically the problem is that the blade will shear off and tear if you try to hook it, and that goes all the way up to polearms, so halberd heads, wheel hooks and such, we'll be able to make in a fashion that actually makes them usable in the historical context.
There we are. So instead of having this really tight angle, although the weapon does have this kind of tight angle here, we've decided to leave it a little bit smoother there, which we think is probably going to add a lot of strength there. The tighter that angle, any angle, the tighter it is, the more stress goes on that one particular point. So we've tried to leave it like a fairly flowing kind of shape there. So there we go. And the thrusting tip right at the end here, we'll leave that. So the other thing is that we've been experimenting perhaps with, or got feedback anyway to show us that we probably should put a Kevlar cap on there as well, to kind of stop these things from bending and breaking through. That's something that we've got, while we've been here at Quest, we've got a lot of feedback on that front from organisers and not other manufacturers, but weapons testers and things. So that's been really good for us actually, is just to learn from other people. To get, really, we want the best result. We want them to be able to be used in any context, any group, with any set of rules. Ideally, we'd be able to cater to all possible needs. That's really what we want to go for. We don't want to exclude anybody if it's possible.
So one of the proudest things we are of our designs is actually the level of detail and fidelity we're able to get in the weapons. So as you can see, the wrap on the suka of the katana is so detailed that when it's in your hand it actually feels like fabric. It's cast in rubber, but the detail in the mold is such that you can't really tell. Similarly, our wood handles feel like wood grain in your hand. Something that we didn't really anticipate, but we wanted to get a high level of quality, and as soon as we touched it, we're like, oh, this is killer, this is amazing, because no one else has been able to produce such historical and authentic feel in a mold and a handle. With the katana as well, you can see the Haman we put on. Now, there are a whole bunch of different designs historically that were done in katana to produce the Haman, and we've just picked the one that we like the most, which is Sangan, which means 3 cedars because it looks like a forest of cedar trees, which is of course typically beautiful in Japanese. Shamshas, you can see the wood grain in the handle, and with the blade we actually finished the mold back in such a way that it looks like a pseudo Damascene or Damascus pattern, where you get variable sheen on the blade. So we've gone to great lengths to keep it authentic but also really pretty, and we believe that the fidelity that we can produce is market leading. One of the excellent features we found when we started prototyping and producing the swords is the different feel of them. So with the Shamsha blade, we've made that applicable to both the Talwar handle and the Shamsha handle. And a wonderful thing that we discovered is that the shape of the actual handle, because we used an antique Talwar handle to cast, is that it means immediately you put it in your hand, you have to start using that sword in the same way, historical context, the Sikh warriors would do. Because it forces your hand into a certain shape, and then the movements that feel natural and will be tactically useful are very similar automatically just on feel to historical context fighting for that kind of sword. Similarly, the Shamshir handle has the hook underneath, and you can let your hand fall into that. The sword guides itself, and with the curved blades, it's amazing how much difference you can feel where the mass of the sword is forward and it edge aligns itself as you swing. It's hard to describe, and when you get your hands on the sword you'll be able to know what we're talking about, but especially massive differences between the Khopesh and the very forward curved other blades. There's so much weight forward of the center line of the Khopesh that it very much feels like the axe sword that they often refer to it as, meeting the military niche, but it just really likes to chop. Similarly with our cavalry saber design, because of the shape of the blade, it's significantly longer, a little bit wider with the flared tip. It's got a lot more forward weight and it really likes to swing. You can absolutely feel that it makes sense to be used from a horseback. So
this is an invention of mine. This is the curved core. It's a fiberglass core that's made very similarly to industrially made cores, however it's made bent. It's not heat treated and then bent, it's made bent, so there's no pre-stress or anything on it. And it has a sort of built-in thrusting tip which is made out of urethane rubber.
The reason why we're choosing to do a crowdfunding project is essentially we've been developing for quite some time, and we're basically there. We've worked out the molding techniques, we've worked out the core techniques, that's solid. It's just now a matter of getting the funding so that we can deliver on perfecting the products and getting them out to everybody. As you know, for a LARPer it feels very different when you've got the sword in your hand to be able to trust what you're buying. So it's very key that we can get our swords out to lots of people in a quick fashion so that we'll be able to grow and to get the swords into everybody's hands so you can feel them, so you can play with them, and so you can change the game. We're coinciding it with Quest down here in Swordcraft in Melbourne as one of the larger events in Australia, and obviously they'll be live online globally. As soon as it goes live, we'll be on our social media. The price points we're looking at pitching them at is about similar to other major manufacturers. We don't want to price gouge anybody, but we also understand we do have a very unique product that nobody else is able to deliver on. But at the end of the day, we want people to have the swords. So our price points are trying to keep it within what people are expecting to pay, and also to respect the quality of the swords. We've got a lot of products in the range. Our basic swords, such as the Shamshirs and the Tulwars, will be priced at around 180 Australian dollars, which is approximately 145 US dollars. Our more complex ones, such as the sabers and the katana, 200 Australian dollars or approximately 150 US dollars. The Khopesh and the smaller axes will be around 150 Australian, approximately 110 US. We've also got larger ones, so we can do the Japanese sword, the Odashi, which is up to 6 feet in length, and that will be around 375 Australian dollars. Love LARP, we have a huge passion for it, and we believe we've got a game-changing product, so the goal is to get everybody to have a great time, and we feel that we're in a great position to be able to deliver that if we get the amount of support that we need to finalise our production methods and deliver to a large audience.